Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. We are back. And this is Dr. G. This is the Fearless Freedom with Dr. G podcast. And I am so grateful to have you here with us again this week. Why? Because nothing's guaranteed. You know that, and I know that. And so anytime that we are given more time on the rock, we have to be grateful. So I thank you, and I'm grateful for you. I also want to say, thank you for all of the love. Oh my goodness. Can I just tell you that last week when I was talking with you, I literally was completely encouraged by the fact that we are over the 12,000 download milestone. And I still have to pinch myself to remind myself that this is not a dream. When this podcast got started, this podcast was started mainly for selfish reasons. I literally started this podcast because I have a fear of public speaking, and I wanted to do something that was bold, that would essentially allow for the documentation of my journey facing my fear of public speaking, as well as providing a modality through which I was able to get in contact with other people who are also facing fear in some way, shape, or form, and were willing to talk about that fear and how they responded to it, how they reacted to it. And it has been tremendous. It has been far greater an experience than I could ever have imagined. I was talking with Taylor Branner. He has a podcast called The Happy Doc, which I had the privilege and honor of being on this past week. And he was just talking about what podcasting has done for him. He started podcasting when he was a medical student and podcasted essentially throughout residency. And it has just been transformative for him. He's been able to build confidence and be able to interact with mentors and individuals that he would not have otherwise been able to interact with. And I can completely identify with that because there have been so many people that I have been in contact with, have had on the show, people in other countries, people in other fields, people that I would not have otherwise met, interacted with, shared a journey with, shared a commonality with, had I not made the decision to face my fear and start the show. And so, the downloads are amazing. I mean, we're almost at 13,000. I'm here looking at the stats right now, and we are halfway there towards 13,000. And likely by the end of this week, once this episode airs, we'll be crossing that 13,000 mark, which is mind-blowing to me because, like I said, the reason the podcast got started was just my own desire to face my fear publicly and get input from others as they're facing theirs. And so this is incredible, absolutely incredible. And I just feel like I have to share that because it just makes me so excited. So, it's something that it's kind of hard to even articulate the power of putting something out there and then seeing it happen and blossom and impact in the way that it does. And I never even thought, so beyond the downloads, beyond the experience that is gained, beyond the touch points of, with other humans, there is something even greater that has come out of this. And I know Taylor talks about this for himself, but for me, I feel like the greater thing beyond all of that is just getting the feedback. So I've had people come up to me and say, hey, Dr. G, because of you, I have decided that I'm going to go for that promotion because I was afraid before and now I'm not afraid. Or, hey, Dr. G, I am also afraid of public speaking, but you've pushed me to do my first Facebook Live and now I'm doing them. I mean, these are the things that are just immeasurable as far as rewards, as far as the feedback. And, just I didn't imagine this. So I'm sharing that. And I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, but I'm trying to articulate the intensity of the feeling that I'm having from the fact that you have shown this podcast love. And because you've shown this podcast love, it has been distributed to more ears and it has been a conduit for impact on more lives. And that is priceless. And so that is worthy of literally an applause. That is like applause worthy by any means. And so I wanted to start off with that. And so thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving the amazing comments that you have. And thank you for giving us 5-star ratings. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, cool. Now that we have that off my chest, I'm referring to myself as a plural pronoun, which is a little bit strange. But now that we have that off my chest, I wanted to just go through a couple of announcements. Of course, I am still super proud, and I'm going to continue to plug the participants of the recent podcasting launch course that took place, because the two have been killing it so far. And I know a third is about to release her show, and I am waiting with bated breath for her to do so. I keep pushing every single week. So I'm hoping that she'll release her show soon so I can start promoting her show as well. But the two shows that I would love for you to take a listen to, show some love to, are Pivot and Bloom with Dr. Mila, and that show is incredible, pure fire, absolutely, and such a show that digs deep into personal development, into wellness, into all the things that make us better than we were yesterday. So definitely show her love, show some love. The last time I checked, was a little bit over 400 downloads and had been at this for the past 30 days. And so super proud of her and all the hard work and the amazing product that has come out from her creativity. And so let's give her a huge amount of love. I appreciate you doing that. The other show is The Drama-Free Workplace with Patty Perez. And Patty is an amazing woman, amazing. She is a lawyer. She is Latina. She's a mom. She's a wife. She is incredibly intelligent, incredibly spunky, incredibly insightful, and her show is fire. Okay, so if you are looking for a show that is going to definitely get your day moving on the right foot, and you are looking for ways in which to make your life drama-free, definitely listen to her show. And so my ask of you is the same. It's going to be, please go ahead, show her show some love. It is The Drama-Free Workplace with Patty Perez, and just go to her show and on your listening platform and leave a positive comment. Give her some love with 5 stars. Give her some love with sharing and subscribing. So yes, I'm just excited about that. The next course is filling up on the waiting list. I still can't believe that. I have to pinch myself about that as well, because that is very exciting. And we'll probably get rolling in August, like late August. Cool. Next announcement. So that was number 1 announcement. Thank you for indulging. The number 2 announcement is this. So I've been giving you guys updates on the progress of the podcast services. So the Done For You podcast services, that is going well. And I am open for business in that regard. And so what are we talking about? So there are two categories. One category is I want to start a podcast, but I just don't have the time. And I don't want to take a course because I just don't have the time to take a course. So then for you, the perfect situation would be to do the podcast in a box launch. So what is that? Basically, you have to provide 5 episodes worth of audio. That's it. We do everything else. We do the show notes. We do the show art. We do the graphic for each episode. We do the copy, the show note copy for each episode. We'll do your logo. We will do all of the things that will make your show ready to launch with the first 5 episodes. Boom, just like that, podcast in a box. So that's if you want to start a podcast, you don't want to take a course because you don't have time, and you just want to get it done. So that's the perfect package for you. The other situation is you have a podcast, you're busy, maybe you have other projects that you want to work on. You don't want to spend the time editing and producing and doing graphics and doing all this stuff. You just want to do the audio and get your show out on a weekly basis or however frequent you get it out. And you want to offload that work to free up time. So that would be the monthly subscription. And that is exactly as it is. You give us the audio, and we will make your episode beautiful, and we will get your graphic for your episode done, your copy for your show notes, all that stuff done. So those are the options. So I am super pumped about the Done For You services because, once again, stepping out on fear and stepping into something that I'm hoping will lead to incredible growth and will also lead to greatness for those who participate. So I want to see some incredible results happen for you. And so if you fall in any of those categories, feel free to reach out and we will get you set up with whatever fits you the best. Okay? So that's it for announcements. Let's get into the episode. Yeah, that's what you came for. That's what you're here for, is to listen to the episode. Today we have Kristen Bowen, and she is amazing, as are all of the wonderful guests that come on the show. And I was touched by our conversation, and I know that you will be too. So let's take a listen. Hello, Fearless Freedom family. This is Dr. G, and I hope that you guys are holding it down and taking good care of yourselves. Today, we have Kristen Bowen. She is going to talk to you guys about some awesome things that she's up to, and she's also going to tell you all about herself and the incredible mission that she has. Kristen?
Dr. G, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. What a privilege it is. My name is Kristen Bowen. I'm the founder of Living the Good Life Naturally, which I sometimes call an accidental business because I never intended to go into business. It just evolved and grew on its own, and I love it. It's my passion in life. My focus is helping people understand the role that magnesium plays in their life. I call myself a magnesium advocate. My kids call me sometimes a magnesium nag because I'm constantly reminding them and asking them, have you soaked in magnesium? Are you offsetting your stress levels with magnesium to make sure that I, myself, and my family and my clients are living a life that is optimal and full of incredible health.
Awesome. So, of course, we're all intrigued because, from my standpoint, the way that I think about magnesium is, yes, there is a balance that you have to have in your body in order for certain action potentials to actually work, i.e. in your heart. You need to make sure that your magnesium levels are doing well, or else you can go into some undesirable rhythms, like one called Tassade de Points, which is not compatible with life. So tell us, how did you become interested in this? And you mentioned that it was an accidental business.
So is what happened. I had autoimmune issues since I was a young girl. And then after my fourth baby was born, I actually have 6 children, but after that fourth baby was born, I started having incontinence. I started getting back to exercising after the baby was born and started having issues as I ran. So I called my sisters up and said, "What the heck has happened? Every time I laugh or run, I pee my pants. This is not acceptable." And so my sisters laughed and they're like, "Oh, your bladder. You need a bladder tie-up. Go back to your OBGYN and see what's happening." And so I did. And sure enough, my sisters were right. My bladder had dropped. And so we scheduled a surgery for a bladder tie-up. And during that surgery is when, for my family, it's a meridian in our lives. We have before the surgery and after the surgery. I crashed on the table. And as what ended up happening is they put some titanium screws in me. And at the time, medical thinking was titanium was inert. And now we know that some people, and especially those with autoimmune, have a higher risk of having an allergic reaction to the titanium. But at the time, we didn't know that. And so I started having seizures, lost a bunch of weight, got down to 74 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
I was fed through a tube. I had a catheter. I had a colostomy bag. My body just started shutting down. And at the time, I had these young children. It got so bad, I wasn't able to care for them. My husband took a leave of absence to take care of the needs of our children. And he literally just took me from doctor to doctor to doctor, trying to figure out what had happened on the surgery. And we just weren't able to put those pieces together. And we finally flew out to Stanford to have them look at me to see. Now, I had been diagnosed celiac, so I am a celiac, and I adhere 100% to a gluten-free diet. But we were like, what's happening? We even wondered, was something left inside my body during the surgery? And so as we went from doctor to doctor, it drained our finances. My husband, we had planned for 6 months. We were financially okay, but it ended up being much longer than 6 months. So it drained our finances, put incredible stress on my young family, and we weren't able to put pieces together. My memory was very patchy, and my movement was pretty much non-existent. They would help me to get into that wheelchair. And we finally found it was actually a physician's assistant who thought outside the box. That's why, Dr. G, I was so excited to be on your podcast, because I thought, here's an emergency room physician that's podcasting. That's thinking outside of the box to get your message out, and is talking about fearless freedom. And so I was so excited to be a part of your show, because I love being around people who think outside the box. And that physician's assistant was the one who put it together. And he asked us and said, "I think you're having a reaction to that titanium. Are you willing to go back under and let's take it out?"
Wow.
And that was a huge decision for us, because I'd almost not made it the last surgery.
Right.
But we just determined my quality of life was so non-existent that at that point it was worth the risk. And so we set up the surgery to go in and remove the titanium screws. And they did that. And coming out of the surgery, you have that la la land is what I call it. You're fuzzy and groggy from being under, but I knew that I already felt better. I could already tell that I felt better having that taken out. And so the titanium was out, and I was definitely on the road to improvement, but my body was still just a train wreck. And at the time, Dr. G, I thought it was the very worst thing that ever happened to me. But looking back, it was when I finally accepted 100% accountability for the choices that I made, the decisions that I made about creating health. where before that is what I was doing was I was going to the doctor and saying, I'm tired, I'm struggling with depression, help me, instead of taking accountability for how much I was sleeping and what I was eating. And so it really helped me turn my life around and take more accountability for what I was doing. And that's when I found magnesium. I was still having a lot of brain fog and little tremors. And a friend brought over some magnesium for me to soak in because I was having such a hard time digesting anything and taking foods in. I was allergic still to so many things. And I immediately felt that relaxing gift that magnesium gives you while I soaked in it, not ingested it, not the
Right.
oral synthetic, but I actually soaked in it. And that's when I fell in love with magnesium, and I've been advocating for people to use it ever since.
Wow. That is a beautiful story. I mean, when I say beautiful, I don't mean the suffering that you endured as beautiful, but I mean the fact that you had a journey that really brought you to a beautiful end, right? Brought you to the point where you had a realization, you then were able to have some self-discovery, and then ultimately you have something that now you're able to share with other people, which I find very fascinating. So
We call it beautifully brutal.
Beautifully brutal. Yes,
Because I
that's
love where my life is at now. I absolutely love. I love waking up in the morning with energy. I love running our Uganda project. I love my business. I love I love where I'm at now. And it did take that journey to get me here. So it was beautiful and brutal at the same time.
well said. Well said. Wow. So, even as we look at that, there are so many points along the journey and within your story that there must have been a wall of fear that came
Oh,
about. I mean, I could think maybe even from your diagnosis, the diagnosis of celiac, maybe from when you realize, oh my goodness, now I have urinary incontinence. This is my fourth child. How is this possible? I mean, there are so many places where you must have come face to face with fear.
there was. And for me, it's a fear that pops up in different ways. But the ultimate fear for me was, Dr. G,
Yeah.
was letting people down. And I had a fear of actually being healthy, even though I said I wanted to be healthy and I claimed that I wanted that. I had a fear of being that healthy because I wasn't keeping up with the responsibilities that I had reduced. I'd reduced the level of responsibilities and I wasn't keeping up with those. And innately, I knew if I get feeling better, I will have more responsibilities. And I
Ah,
hate letting people down.
I
And
see.
that fear actually held me back. And I created these little pathways of not taking care of myself because that ultimate fear of letting people down was driving me. And it was embracing that fear that I actually was able to start creating better health.
Wow. Interesting. That is so interesting because, that is very much likens to, if you have a project you start and you start to have success in that project, like you are almost afraid of the success
Mhm.
because it means that there's a great expectation. So it kind of sounds
Right.
like you were feeling the same way. You didn't want to have success in health because that meant more responsibility. That meant more asks of you, and
Yes.
you didn't want to disappoint anybody.
No,
Wow, fascinating.
and it made it, I would say I wanted to be healthy, but I wasn't going to bed on time. I would
Ah,
say I wanted to be healthy, but I wasn't eating enough vegetables. I call it grandma wisdom. We can have all these cutting breakthroughs in science and the medical world. We still have to hold on to that grandma wisdom. Drink your water, eat your vegetables, go to bed on time. And I wasn't doing those basics. And part of the reason for me was because ultimately I knew if I do those basics, I will feel better and people will expect more of me. And so I kept myself in that small, dark, lonely place out of the fear of just letting them down and not being able to be what they needed me to be for them. And so it was really drawing new boundary lines of responsibility, what was appropriate, what was inappropriate, that really helped me embrace creating better health.
Wow. And then how did you, so then now you found where you're in a place where you had to develop boundaries. How did you get there? Because I mean, you went from one day you were in a situation where you just, no, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I don't get any better because I don't want them to ask me to do X, Y, and Z because I just don't want to, let anybody down. And then you're at another point where you're like, you know what, I'm just going to set some boundaries and that is going to enable me to meet and exceed expectations and everybody will be happy, including myself. How did you
Right.
get there?
So in the beginning, I couldn't have consciously, if you would have said to me, Kristen, you don't want to be healthy because of this fear. If someone would have pointed that fear out to me, I would have absolutely wholeheartedly disagreed with them. It was such a part of my shadow, parts of myself that I didn't see or want to see.
Got
And
it.
so the process that unlocked it for me goes back to grandma wisdom. And that is good old fashioned pen and paper and journaling. I became an avid journaler and journaling through those emotions and those feelings. And I would start going back and reading what I was writing. And my favorite type of journaling is a 30-minute free write. There's a great book called The Artist Way, and that's where I learned about the 30-minute free write and literally just opening up a journal and just writing and not having a destination or a purpose, but just getting out what's inside. And as I started doing that, it really opened me up and unlocked those fears. And being able to see those fears on paper helped me to be able to embrace them and then work through them, because I do not want to be driven by fear. I don't want that to be my experience. And I didn't realize how much I was driven by fear until I saw that on physical paper.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Journaling for sure is very, very powerful. And you've just demonstrated that. So you read this book and let me make sure I got it right. The Artist's Way. Is
Yes,
that
The
right? Okay.
Artist Way by Julie Cameron, I believe
Julie.
is her name.
Okay. Because I'm sure that the audience will be interested in learning more about that. Okay. And so so you read the book, then you started doing what sounds like cathartic journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were able to go back and look at your thoughts. And then from that was where you had the revelation that this is what was happening to me. I need to have a different path. And then from there, you proceeded to develop the boundaries that allowed for you to not only survive, but essentially thrive in your life. Is that
And
about right?
yes, and as I looked back, I realized I was a yes woman. If you asked me to do something, oh yes, I can do that for you. Oh yes, I can do that for you. Oh, of course, let me do that to my already full plate. And so I realized I needed to set better boundaries and learn how to pronounce the word no
Mm,
and have
I
more
love that.
self-care involved in my life. I needed more time to take care of myself and put myself first, so that, it goes back to that old adage of the airplane putting on your own oxygen. And, we all know that story, but actually doing it and saying no to that person in front of me was hard because my heart wants to. I want to help. I want to make a difference in other people. in other people's lives. And so actually saying, let me check my calendar and I'll get back in touch with you. So I had to find ways to say no that I was comfortable with in the beginning. And it was really hard for me. And I had to actually practice saying no, because my immediate response was, oh, I want to do that.
Right.
And just because I wanted to do it doesn't mean that I needed to do it, because I had to have that balance to take care and put that self-care into my own life with my autoimmune. I'm sometimes a little higher maintenance in making sure that my needs are taken care of. And so making sure that that boundary was appropriate was crucial in my healing journey.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. Wow. Yeah, no, that's very, very insightful that you were able to come to that conclusion, make those adjustments, and then, be able to have a path that you desire, And so now, we've talked about, how you were able to deal with that adversity. Now, how did you get to the point where you actually started a business, became an entrepreneur? You're now paying it forward in that realm. Like, how did that happen?
So after I had been so sick, and it was very evident how sick I was. When you looked at me, you did not even have to know me, and you knew that I was a very sick person. And so as I started soaking in the magnesium and restoring my magnesium levels, eating better, drinking water, people started noticing, Kristen, you're doing so much better. And so people started coming to me and saying, oh, my sister-in-law had seizures. Could you help her? What helped you during your seizures? And so people just started coming to me and asking questions. And I loved it, Dr. G, because it helped me to make sense of that whole mess that had happened. And it helped me to take that mess and turn it into gold. And so we realized, as I was talking with people, that I needed to be very careful and help them understand, I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose. I'm just sharing with you things that I've done to help get me back to where I'm at, to build that strong foundation and to stop chasing symptoms. And so as that happened, because it felt so good to make sense out of that mess. And that boundary line became messed up again, because if someone wanted help, whether it was 10 o'clock at night or 6
Right.
o'clock in the morning, oh yes, let me help you. And my husband sat me down with all the love that he has for me and said, Kristen, every time you say yes to someone outside of our family, you're saying no to our children, and they miss you. And we've got some healing that needs to happen in our family. And I'm so grateful that he said that in a way that I was able to listen and not get defensive. He said it with such love. And so that's when he said, have you ever thought about charging them? Because if you charge them, they'll have more respect for your time and what's happening. And so I did. I started charging them. And that in of itself was an incredibly difficult journey for me, because I'd been where they'd been. I'd been at that place where you're just so desperate and you've tried so many things to get better that haven't worked. And you feel like you're just chasing everything. But what happened is they started having more respect for my time. We scheduled it in advance. It wasn't just on the spur of the moment when they needed me. And what I saw happen is when they invested in themselves, they actually followed through on what we talked about. Wow. And so that's how Living the Good Life Naturally got started. And then as it grew, we flew home one weekend, and UPS had dropped off, I think it was like 53 or 54 boxes. We had to move boxes before we even walked through the front door. And my husband looked at me and he said, "This is our home."
It's not a distribution center.
Yeah. this has outgrown our home. You've got to find somewhere to do this. And
Got
so
it.
we rented our first space, and it was so scary.
That
When I
is
signed that
scary. Oh my gosh.
contract, I was like, oh, $800. Oh my gosh, I'm going to pay $800. Do I even want to do this? But I did. I loved it. I love connecting with people. And so we moved to our first space. And then the next big scary jump was hiring our first employee.
Okay.
And that was just like, oh my goodness. And she was a dear friend of mine. And we call employees team, because they're the reason that I'm able to do what I do, because of their support. And so now we have lots of employees, and we're in a big massive warehouse, and we're getting ready to build our own warehouse. And every single time that fear comes up, Dr. G, it's not
Yeah.
that the fear goes away. In fact, sometimes it feels even bigger. Is what's changed is my ability and tools to push through that fear and not
Absolutely.
let that fear determine my decisions.
That's awesome. That is so much gold right there. Because oftentimes we do get crippled by fear and we don't see it like that. We don't think that by facing it, by figuring out solutions to go forward, that we are, we think we have to get rid of it all the way, but we don't. It's just like you said, you have to basically do it anyway, realizing that it's there, but still doing what you need to do in order to make it happen. So wow, that is awesome. Love that story about how your business was born and how it has grown. And basically, just congratulations, because, it's not easy. It's not easy to start off with an idea and then to have it blossom to the point where now you're looking to build your own warehouse because you have just had such nice expansion. So congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. I had a good friend say to me, because when we went, the warehouse that we're in now was the biggest jump that we'd ever made. And it's a lot of money to pay every month for that warehouse. And
Right.
I can remember just heaving sobs, just, oh, is this the right decision? What if I can't make payroll and I can't meet, this new warehouse payment? And I had a dear friend that looked at me, and she grabbed me by the shoulders and she said, Kristen, there's a devil at every level,
Oh
and you just
my.
have to face this one.
So
And it's
true.
true.
She's
It
wise.
never goes away. And every time we have growth, whether that's personal growth, physical growth, growth in the business, there's a new devil at every level.
Oh
And
yeah.
you have to, put your hand on your back and square those shoulders back and determine, am I going to get through this? And my answer was yes. I wanted that. I wanted the growth. I wanted to be able to help more people. I wanted to be able to serve more people. And to do that, I had to make that commitment to a bigger warehouse payment.
Wow. That is great. That's beautiful. I mean, that is very inspiring, I have to say. I am an entrepreneur like yourself, but obviously I don't have a brick and mortar type of business, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
podcasting is not really brick and mortar. But that is super encouraging, because I know that there are people who are listening to this podcast who maybe have an idea that they would like to share in the form of a device or in the form of a service, and they want to get it out there. And it is very inspiring to hear that once you have found the solution to the tribe's problem and you put it out there and you package it, basically you will have growth. And that is just a great lesson, because a lot of times the biggest obstacle that we have as entrepreneurs is, just like you said, oh my, I don't know, should I take this leap? Because is it really going to work? Are there really going to be people who are interested in this thing? And, it's taking that chance like you did. You take the chance, you see the spark, you basically stoke the fire, and it just grows. So that's very inspirational. And I definitely thank you. And I know the tribe thanks you for sharing your story, because the more we hear about how we can have success with putting our ideas out there, is the better equipped we are to have the confidence to do it ourselves. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Dr. G. You're an inspiration yourself with what you're doing, working at night. And a lot of women could say, oh, I'm too tired to do a podcast. And you make it work because it's your passion. And I love being around like-minded women that are making it work because it's their passion. We need more women standing up with their passion and changing the world. It's crazy. There's chaos out there, and we need women making a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. Totally. Wow. And so, let's just switch gears just a tad.
Okay.
And I would love for you to share a little bit about your large family. I mean,
Oh.
I thought my family is not huge. I mean, we have three, but it's like everybody's always curious. And I have a colleague who has 11 and another colleague who has 7. But I'm always asking them, like, so what is it like at your house? Is it noisier than mine? Because my house is pretty noisy. Like what happens? Like, how do you guys manage?
Yeah.
And so it's always fascinating, because it sounds like you have 4 that are really close together. And then I don't know when the other 2 came about, if there was a gap there. And, because there's always like that dynamic of, if you have a child, like the firstborn, and then but the span between the firstborn and like the lastborn is maybe like 12 years or something. Then, then the firstborn ends up playing a huge role in rearing the lastborn. So I don't know, is that something that's happening in your family or?
So our family is a little bit unique. I have 6 children, and all of my children are launched. They're all successfully, I might add. They're all launched out of my home and either in their careers or working on their careers. And our family, some of our children, we fell in love with through the foster care system. So 2 of my children are born through my heart. 4 were born through my body, and 2 were born through my heart. And we adopted them as older children. One was 9, one was 4. And so when you see all 6 of my children together, you go, how does that work? And it was loud. It was so loud, Dr. G. But here's the thing. It was messy, and there was fighting that happened. And I had a friend that came over once because I was burned out on the arguing that was happening. And she looked at me and she said, Kristen, all 6 of these children are leaders. Do you really think they're going to sit passively by? You want them learning how to use their voice. And she taught me in that moment that arguing and bickering and the messiness was all a part of their training and all a part of them learning how to negotiate. And we loved having all 6 of them at home and that big, messy, chaotic life. And sometimes that day to day will, get up, and now it's just my husband and I, and we have our little routine, and he'll look at me and he'll say, turn something on. It's so quiet.
Oh, wow.
And we miss that loud. I also have 7 grandchildren that are absolutely beautifully perfect little specimens of human beings. And when we all get together, the noise level is through the roof.
I'm sure.
But wound through that noise level is a whole lot of love that keeps us together. We're not perfect. We're not close to perfect. We have issues in our family just like everyone else does. But we have made the commitment to each other that we will not give up. And we continue to press forward.
No, that's great. That's good. That's encouraging because my 3 like to argue as well. So perhaps that's the leadership qualities being trained in them also. So that's encouraging. Great. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Kristen, and really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story, sharing the inspiration, sharing how you have come toe to toe with fear on many different levels and emerge victoriously. And, that is just absolutely phenomenal, and appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable, because I know that's not an easy thing to do, to tell your story. So, and even if you've told it like millions of times. Every single time, it still takes courage. So thank you for that. The
Well,
other
thank you
thing,
for having me on.
oh yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And so now we have to do what we always do at the end of the
Okay,
show, which is our little
I've
tradition.
listened. I'm ready.
Are you are ready? Oh, I love
I'm
that.
ready.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. All right. So the first one is, if I am fearless, I will.
Change the world.
Awesome. The next one is, to me, fearless freedom means.
The ability to follow the desires my heart has.
Love it. And last but not least, my battle cry is.
I've gone back and forth on this one. My battle cry is, and I think for me, Dr. G, my battle cry sometimes changes, but my battle cry right now with where I'm at in my personal life, in, this shelter at home that we've all been experiencing lately, my battle cry is, I am choosing connection, because connected women are healthy women. And I'm choosing to be connected with those I love in any way possible. And I'm choosing to connect with them on a deeper level, to make sure that they know that I'm there for them and that they're important to me. So my battle cry is connection.
Wow.
Connected to our health, connected to our loved ones, connected to financial success, connected to those things that move us forward and help us to be more of who we were meant to be.
No, I mean, that's very well said. Absolutely. Because that's something that's super important right now, because as we do socially isolate ourselves, then that can be an emotional isolation that comes along with that. And we have to guard our hearts in that regard. And so by connecting with others, we can definitely ensure that we protect each other in that way.
Yeah. And lift each other. I don't think we've even begun to see some of the mental health issues that are being formed right now. And I think it's crucial that we take good care of ourselves so we can be there for our children, for our families, for each other. And I think we also have to allow other people being there for us. That give and receive cycle is crucial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we did not, I just realized that we did not at any point in our conversation share how the audience can get in contact with you.
Oh,
do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is livingthegoodlifenaturally.com, and they can go to the website and they can click on the contact me, and that email comes right to me. And so that's a great way. They can also join us. I have a Magnesium Natural Health group on Facebook where we just talk all things magnesium, and they're welcome to join us there also.
Awesome. 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 Great. Well, I thank you again for coming on, and it was a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you, Dr. G.